In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Christ is in our midst. You know, there's so many beautiful gospel readings that we hear throughout the year. And today is one of those gospel readings that, for me, just reaches out and touches me in a different way every time I read it. And I think that's why the church continues to repeat the readings throughout the years. The gospel reading today was about a man who was beaten and left on the street for dead. And it was about certain people walking by and not paying attention to him, not helping him, seeing that he was robbed and that he was hurt. But there was one person who was considered to be a person who would not respond to help. And he was the one who picked him up, cleaned him up, took him to an inn, and pledged to the innkeeper that he would take care of him and pay anything in addition to the costs that were already being paid. You see, each and every one of us has a choice. We have so many choices with different things in our lives. We have a choice either to walk by or to stop and to help someone. And likewise in our life, not only for the things that we do for other people, but for what we do for God, we have a choice of either wasting what God has given us, ignoring it or hiding it, or investing it. Now, you've all probably heard the parable about the talents and about the landowner giving money out to certain people, and then he comes back and asks for it back. And he said, "What do you have for me?" And some said, "I don't have anything. I just buried it in the ground. Or I have more than you have given me because I have invested it." That parable about the talents is really a parable about our lives, about what each and every one of us does with what God has given to us. Do we waste the things that God has given to us? Whether it's wealth, whether it's time, whether it's love. Do we hide those things? Whether it's the ability to do a certain talent, do we just ignore it and not cultivate it? Or do we dig deep inside ourselves in a prayerful way and find the things that God has given to us and make them more than what He has initially given to us? If you think about your children, what do you want for your children? Do you want them just to hear something that you have to say, to ignore it, or to waste it? Or the talents that you see that they have, would you prefer if you just brought to light their talents and said, you know, you have a beautiful gift of maybe playing the piano. Do yourself a favor, don't take any lessons, and don't ever go play it again. What parent would ever do that? Who would ever say to their child, don't take what I have given you, don't take what God has given you and make more of it? In our lives as stewards of the church, we have a choice of giving, we have a choice of saving, and we have a choice of spending. You know, it's amazing when you talk to people and you ask them about maybe shopping sprees, and it's always interesting. You see people walking through the mall and they have all their bags, and they're so happy. And I think that that's, you know, for the time, for some things it could be good to be happy about getting a particular item, especially if it's a new water heater like we needed this past week. But sometimes, and many times, we buy something and then later we feel bad about it. We feel good at the immediate time and we feel bad later. And I think every single person in this church has done that. Whether it was an impulse buy or whether it's January when our bills come from Christmas and we say, did I really spend that much on Christmas presents? We feel good in the immediate, but later we feel bad. Some people just save everything that they have. They don't spend a dime. And there's a Greek word, they used to call them tsingunis. You know, that they're so cheap, they hold everything and they hang on to it, and they don't let anything out. And we see that sometimes with people. And I think a good barometer of that is when you go trick-or-treating with your children, and you go door to door, and they open the door, and the person is like this, and will give you a little wrapper out of a big bowl. Or some people will grab a handful. And I remember one particular home that I had gone to with my son, not this year, but last year. We went into kind of this far-off neighborhood. And there was was really nobody in this neighborhood. I said, let's go, and the houses were really far apart. I said, let's drive up to the driveway and go trick-or-treating there. And he's like, Dad, come on, it's so far, and we got to drive, we got to get back in the car, we got to get out of the car, with the equipment and everything that everybody wears at Halloween, you're getting trapped and you got your coats. So we go up to this home, and we ring the doorbell, and this lady came with eagerness to the door with this big basket. And it was like a flat basket that you would normally take and have like a tray or something in it. And she had all king-size candy bars in there. And she looked at us and said, "You're the only person who's come to my house this evening. Take whatever you want." So needless to say, that was the last home we went to for Halloween. But how many times does God give us a basket full of things, loaded, and we go like this? Here you go. I'll come to church this Sunday because the Bears are starting early. And you know how many times I've handed out bread? And everybody says, "Father, great job on the time. The Bears kick off. I'm going tailgating or whatever." Everybody's so excited. And I think, was that the preoccupation mentality in the church during the whole service, that you were just like, whew, all right, we were going to make it. We're going to do it. Many times, if there's a Bears game, we tend to not see many Bears fans in the church because they are worried for some reason that church will go longer than expected. So God gives us something. So we see the people who spend on themselves. They feel good now, bad later. We see people that do nothing. And then there is the group that gives. And the group that gives, it tends to be the opposite of the spenders. It feels difficult now, but it feels better later. How many times have you come to church, for example, and said, "I don't want to get up to go to church today. I'm tired. I worked yesterday. I've been working 12-hour days all week." And you come to church, and everyone, I've heard this so many times, they said, "I didn't want to come to church today, but I feel good that I did. It was hard for me to get here. And as I leave, I feel better about myself." There's never a time that we look back at our church attendance, hopefully in this church, and say, "Man, I wish I would not have come to church on this particular Sunday. It was just not anything. I didn't get anything out of it." I have never heard that, and if you feel that way, please feel free to tell me, because something is going awry somewhere. But likewise, when we give to God, not only by praying to Him and giving Him our talents and our time, but when we give Him our treasures, many times when we look at the stewardship card, we say, "Whew, there's some big numbers here. I don't want to give this. This is difficult." But for those who are givers to the church, they know that in time they feel better about what their gift is. And in Matthew 12:35, it says, "A good person out of the good treasure of their heart brings forth good things." So when we talk about treasures in the church, so many times we think about money. But we really, in the church, have to understand treasures as being where our heart is. For where your treasure is, there your heart shall also be. And then we hear again in the Bible, "Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not consume." The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure in a field. And upon finding it, as it says in Matthew 13:44, the man sells everything and goes to buy the field. Now it's interesting, if the kingdom of heaven is compared to a treasure in the field, and then we hear the rest of that story, and it says, then upon finding the treasure in the field, he goes, he sells everything to buy the entire field. But how many of us would say, "Give me a shovel, I'm going to take it with me. I'm going to take the treasure and I'm going to go. I don't need to buy the field. I'll take what it is there, I'll take it with me, see you later," and I still keep what I had. That many times in our stewardship life, in every sense of the word, with our time, our talent, and our treasures, becomes our mentality. I will take what I need and keep what I have, instead of saying, I will invest in this field, which not only contains the treasure, but is also the Word and the mission of God. And by giving that, by selling what I have to invest in this, I lose absolutely nothing. If you think about also in the gospel readings, where it talks about what God has given to us. Has He given us health? Has He given us time? Has He given us money? Has He given us talents, skills? He says, if you are faithful with a little, then I will make you faithful over much. What does that mean? How can we really expect God to give us more and more and more, in every sense of the word, if we don't give Him more every year or every day of our life? It's so easy to look and to say, Lord, I don't feel good today. Please make me feel better. I think everyone has done that, and I think many times when you might be ill and maybe even in your washroom, slumped over your toilet with a sick stomach, and you might be bargaining with God, please make this stop, and I promise I will do more. I've seen it so many times, not only with people's stories, but also in hospital beds, when people are ill and they're dying, and they say, you know what, now is the time when I need to go to God and to ask Him, and to say, please, if you make me better, I promise I will do this. I promise I will go to church every week. I promise I will give to the poor. I promise, I promise, I promise. Many times what I see is that promise never can be fulfilled because time runs out. And time is running out for each and every one of us in this church. The time is running out when we can look at the building in this community, this church, the pews, and to say that we have enough seating for our children. The time is running out when we can look at our classrooms and say we have enough classrooms to house our children. And if there's a special event, they don't get displaced in their class. The time is running out for so many things. The time is running out when this church will be able to be serviced by only one priest. However, you can flip the clock around by investing in your stewardship, by investing in your prayer life, and by investing in what God has asked you to invest in. He hasn't asked you just to come and show up on Sunday. He hasn't asked you to take your skills and not offer them to Him as a gift. After all, if you think about your professions, each and every one of you, whether you cook, whether you're a housewife, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, or whatever, who has given you that gift? God has. God has given you the skills. And do you offer them back to Him? And I'm not saying in a financial way only, but do we offer back to God and say, you know what? I know the church needs this. I know the church needs help with maybe developing something, and I can help with that. I'm an electrician. I can help with that. Or I'm skilled in sewing. Maybe there's something in the church that needs to be sewed. Maybe there's a special event that I can apply my talents to. Or maybe, just maybe, I can offer myself up, even in my lack of skills, and the church will find a place to utilize me. That is the greatest understanding of oneself. To say that no matter what I have or what I don't have, I offer myself to God and I ask Him to use me to promulgate His mission and to further the church, not only this Orthodox church, but the mission throughout the world. You know, I heard the other day on the radio, and I was listening to a talk show, and it was talking about generosity. And it says, it's not how much we give that makes us generous, but it's how much we keep. Now, if you think about that, each and every one of us has different skill sets, financial brackets, different talents, and different time allotments. However, if you're a billionaire like Bill Gates, and we see all the time, did you just see that he gave $34 million to some cause? And everybody's like, that's wonderful. That's what he gave. But what does he still keep? Billions. for the lady in the gospel reading that we hear about, where she walks in the back of the church and she puts one coin into the tray. She gave little according to the standards of giving, but according to her indigence and her lack of wealth, that was a great gift, because what she keeps is even less than what she gave. How many of us give more than we keep? Probably none of us. And how many of us give and still have a multitude left? Is it generous that we might give? Or is it generous what we have left? It's all relative to you. Everyone is in different categories with our times, our talents, and our treasures. But next Sunday will be our Stewardship Sunday, and I will preach once again on stewardship. And we will pass around the cards for your pledges for the year. And I pray that you realize that this church will wither and die without your help. And it's not just the financial help. If there's no one in church on Sunday, is it a church? No. Did you know that the theology of the church and the rubrics of the church say that if there is no one except for the priest in church on a Sunday or any other day for a divine liturgy, it is forbidden for the priest to serve the liturgy. Without you, it is forbidden for the service to go on. Why? Because we gather as the members of Christ. And in communion, which you receive from, is where we commune with one another. If the priest receives communion by himself, who is he communing with besides God? Is he communing with the faithful? If you do not commune, then who are you communing with? Next week, you're going to be asked to make a choice. You're going to be asked to step up to the plate and to bear some of the responsibility of this church. And no matter what you think about what's happening in the church, it's our responsibility to bear the burden, to have our fair share, to step up, and to give when it might be hard at first, but when we look back and we say, that feels good. And like I said last week, we shouldn't give until it hurts. We should give until it feels good. You know, there's so many things, as I mentioned last week, in the progress of the church that, and I know many of you probably won't stay for the General Assembly next week, which is unfortunate, but I'm asking you to. But my dreams and aspirations for this church are far beyond where we are right now. And I'll share some of those with you. I see us having a very large church. I see us having everyone in church at the same time. Our children and our parents and our grandparents. To have a church that will house each and every one of us. I see us having senior housing to house those who are older. I see us having a large hall to host all our events and to even make it viable for someone having a wedding to say, I will choose the church in every aspect, not only for my wedding, but for my reception. I see us having classrooms where kids aren't sitting on top of each other, or where chairs have to be stacked every Sunday because there's not enough room in the classrooms. I see us having more than one meeting room so that when we have multiple events like Philoptochos or Goya or Parish Council, that it's not an arm wrestling match to find out who gets the room that can house everyone. I see us having ample storage so that we don't look like gypsies having our chairs and tables just stacked in the corners and all our garbage and things not properly put away because we are out of room. I see us having multiple hands, multiple sets of hands to minister to you each and every day of the year, to reach out to you, to communicate with you, and to give you everything that God has asked and of you and gives to the clergy to give to you. I see us coming to church frequently and on time and embracing the message of God. I see all those things, and I know where we all can be. We can be in a magnificent church with all of those around us. We can make a difference, not only in our church complex, but also to reach out to many of the other ministries and needs in the congregation and in our city. But we need your help. And it cannot be done if you don't say that it can be done. And your response as a steward next week, how you pledge for 2006, will say to me as the priest, I share that vision, I don't care about that vision, or I choose to keep my own things for myself and will not invest in the church. Everything can be done. All those things can be done tomorrow if you invest today. Amen.